Our top story this hour comes from Europe. Now, the European Union has decided to overhaul its current asylum system with a new migration pact. The EU hopes that the new pact will encourage countries to share the responsibility for migrants that land on European shores. The decision comes after years of internal dispute among the EU member states over the handling of refugees and migrants. The pact would require all 27 EU countries to take part. The member states would either agree to take in asylum seekers or take charge of sending them back. That is, those that have been refused asylum. In 2015, more than 1 million migrants, most of them refugees fleeing conflict in Syria, arrived in Europe, sparking one of the EU's biggest political crises. The EU's 27 states have since then been divided over how to respond to this influx of migrants on its shores.
You can choose between relocating those that are probably in need of international protection, or you can do the return sponsorship of those that have a return decision. This is how member states help a member state that is under pressure, because they have more migrants than they can deal with in a situation. That could be in a crisis. Then it has to go quicker and be a bit sharper, and that could be for a pressure situation where you have a little bit more time to work with this, of course depending on the situation. And for the search and rescue cases, we are also looking into other possibilities to show solidarity, so it's even a little bit more flexible.
The proposed plans have already started receiving criticism, both by human rights groups and governments opposed to taking in migrants. The arguments continue despite the fact that the entry of unauthorized migrants has been reduced to a mere trickle as compared to 5 years ago. According to data from the European Commission, around 140,000 people arrived in Europe last year, as compared to around 2 million migrants who entered legally. The proposal would push other EU members to help ease the load on countries like Greece, Italy, Malta and Spain by taking in some of the refugees. The Commission said that it wants EU countries and the bloc's parliament to adopt the reforms by the end of this year. The Migration Pact proposals are likely to spark heated debate among member countries. The European Union's new proposal comes on the heels of a massive fire at the Moria refugee camp in Lesbos, which left more than 12,000 people homeless. The tragedy brought the EU's migration policy under the spotlight yet again. This is some news, of course, coming in from Europe, where the European Union has suggested what is called a new migration pact and a complete overhaul of its current asylum system. This pact would encourage other countries to share the responsibility for the migrants that land on European shores and seek asylum. The decision comes after years of internal dispute among the member states over handling the refugees and migrants that come upon its shores. And now, for more on this news development, we are being joined by Lucy Howe, live from Brussels. Lucy, a very warm welcome to you. Now, the EU has called for a compulsory system across the bloc to manage the issue of migration. So tell us a little about what this pact entails and how will this affect more than 1 million migrants and refugees that have been arriving in Europe since 2015?
Well, essentially, this is about avoiding seeing a repeat of the migrant crisis in 2015 and 2016, when, of course, we had hundreds of thousands of people making their way through the bloc and differing policies within European countries. For example, Hungary and Poland refusing to take on the mandatory quotas on asylum seekers that were imposed by the European Union. So instead, we have a more flexible pact of solidarity, was the language that was being used when this was announced yesterday. What will happen is essentially countries will be offered a cash advantage if they grant an asylum seeker who has legal right to remain the chance to stay within their country. If they refuse, then they have to assist or at least provide help with the logistics of returning that migrant back to their country of origin. There will also be expedited processes at the European external borders, with the process designed to take a maximum of 5 days, and essentially the bulk of the work being done with EU-wide protocols, which will be established by a new body which will have oversight of the process to make that process quicker. But no one in the European Union was particularly happy by the proposals that were announced. You know, this was never going to be easy, but certainly the countries that see the bulk of the problem and have the weight of responsibility on their shoulders, like Italy, Spain and Greece, they were unhappy that still they are going to be receiving the bulk of the numbers. Hungary and Poland were unhappy that they're going to have to be still stepping in to help with this process.
Right. Now, Lucy, very recently the fires at the Moria camp in Greece had served as a reminder that the EU in fact needs to manage the refugee crisis better to stop it from becoming a complete humanitarian disaster. So how have human rights organizations reacted to this new migration pact?
Well, it hasn't been welcomed by many human rights organisations who feel that this is not the right way for the European Union to proceed. But there has been already, prior to yesterday's announcement, a promise that the EU would play a central role alongside Greece in rebuilding the Moria camp. And we have seen